You ever find that you have a strong impulse to organize before you get to doing the thing, whatever that thing is? And sometimes that organization means that you do that for so long, you actually never get to the thing you were trying to do. Well, if this is you, then stay tuned. Welcome to the Do More, Stress Less podcast. I'm your host, Alexis Hasselberger, a time management and productivity coach. In every episode, I give you actionable, practical tips to help you learn to use your time in a way that feels good to you every day. No more hustling, scrambling, or struggling to keep your head above water. So let's dive in, and soon enough, you'll be doing more and stressing less. Now, there's something that I find myself saying all the time in coaching sessions, so I might as well say it right here to you as well. Only add complexity where complexity is necessary. I'll say that again. Only add complexity where it's necessary. Now, we have a tendency, I mean, the general we, right, to want to organize, to add, to move things around, right? But that tends to be kind of make work. It doesn't often actually move things forward. And it's so easy to get stuck when you're trying to create like the perfect taxonomy for something. My goal in almost everything I do is to limit overhead. I want to do the thing, whatever the thing is, with the least effort possible. So, I want to give you a few examples from real life coaching sessions about how and why we should avoid complexity unless it's absolutely necessary. So, one of these areas is what I call organizing before. Now, often the act of organizing can prevent us from doing the thing that we need to do, the thing that would make the other things better, right? So, several years ago, I was coaching a client and he was telling me about how he'd been procrastinating on giving his wife his computer because there were a bunch of photos on it and he needed to organize the photos before he could relinquish the laptop to her, right? Now, as the person in my own relationship who is almost always the recipient of the hand me down tech, I felt this deeply. And so I asked him just a simple question. I said, "Why do you need to organize the photos before you can give her the laptop?" And he said, well, actually, he waited a beat and then he said, I don't know. And here's the thing, he was making it more complex than it needed to be. Right. In the end, he just put all the photos on a file, uploaded them to the cloud, and maybe he organized them later, or maybe he didn't. But it was no longer the barrier to his wife getting the laptop. He didn't actually need to do the organizing before to get the thing done. Now, another area that this comes up a lot for a lot of my clients is around tasks and task management. Building out an effective, low maintenance task system is something that I help all of my clients with. And for most of my clients, the impulse to build out a complex folder structure is strong. But I often or always caution against this, right? So instead, I suggest we start with just like two categories, right? Work and home. If we find that we need more complexity, we can add it later as it becomes necessary. But because we prioritize based on date and based on time, it's often not necessary to use a complex folder structure. And in fact, using a complex structure often makes it harder to use the task system, which means that people are less likely to use it. And so it's interesting, right? Because it's kind of counterintuitive. We think, oh, if it's more, quote, organized, then it'll be easier to use. But oftentimes, this is just not the case. So it's counterintuitive, but it's true. And I'll give you one last example of this. So I'm talking about filing, right? Whether this is digital filing, which most of us are doing, or maybe some of us still have some paper filing, but just like filing in its, filing, right? So we often approach filing systems from this top-down approach, right? We want to create this perfect taxonomy, replete with the subfolders and the sub-subfolders. We want to make sure that everything has a place and it's going into its place. So we create this thing, and then you go to file something, and it doesn't quite fit into your very neat predetermined categories. Now, what if instead, when you're trying to file things, you created the folders just as you needed them, right? Not from the beginning, you try to think of all of the things that you would need and where things would go, but you just create it as you need it, right? Wouldn't that be simpler? Wouldn't you end up with fewer empty folders, right? Wouldn't it be faster to find what you're looking for when you create the needed complexity only as it's needed, right? So think about this in other areas of your life. The next time your impulse is to organize, to put things into categories, to move things around, I want you to ask yourself if doing so will actually help you get the thing done, or if it's just a way to feel like you're being productive. And that's a wrap on today's episode of the Do More, Stress Less podcast. If you found today's episode helpful, please share it with somebody who could use a little less stress in their life. And make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're excited to take action or you need a little extra support, check out the free resources available on my website or schedule a free consultation call with me. You can do both of these at alexishasselberger.com. See you next time.